The residual glitter of the charity gala seemed to cling to Ryan Reynolds like cheap perfume. He steered his black Mercedes through the Los Angeles streets, the setting sun bleeding orange and purple hues across the vast, indifferent sky. Home. The word echoed slightly hollow in the plush confines of the car. He craved the familiar comfort of his own space, a sanctuary from the exhausting performance of the evening, a relentless ballet of air kisses, meticulously crafted anecdotes, and the blinding flash of cameras capturing manufactured smiles. He'd played his part, navigated the intricate social currents, but the required charm left a metallic taste in his mouth, a sense of profound unreality. The low, rhythmic hum of the powerful engine was a welcome counterpoint to the lingering echo of forced laughter and polite applause. He loosened his tie, the silk smooth beneath his fingers, a small act of rebellion against the starched formality he'd endured. The radio murmured a melancholic jazz piece, Chet Baker's trumpet weaving a tapestry of lonely notes that somehow resonated with the peculiar detachment coiling within him. It was a familiar feeling after these events, a sense of being adrift, an observer in his own life. This gilded cage, he sometimes thought. Driving usually helped ground him, especially at this hour, the golden hour, when the city softened its edges and the usual frantic energy mellowed. Long shadows stretched from palm trees and buildings, painting impressionistic strokes on the sun-warmed asphalt. The world outside the tinted windows slid by, a neon sign flickering to life, silhouettes of people hurrying home, the distant wail of a siren, a city brimming with stories, most of which he'd never know. As he approached an intersection, the traffic light glowed a defiant red, commanding a halt. Ryan eased the car to a stop, his hands resting lightly on the leather-wrapped steering wheel. He watched the cross-traffic flow, a river of metal and light. Across the wide street, the mundane tableau of urban life played out. A man jogging with determined focus, a couple laughing on the sidewalk, a bus sighing as it pulled away from the curb. Then, his gaze snagged on movement. A nondescript black sedan, much like 1,000 others in this city, pulled sharply to the curb on the opposite side. Nothing inherently alarming. People parked erratically in LA all the time. It was practically a local sport, but something held his attention. The driver's door swung open with a certain abruptness, and a figure emerged into the deepening twilight. The streetlights flickered on, casting pools of sallow illumination. Ryan squinted slightly, his actor's instinct for observation kicking in. The man moved with a tense, deliberate energy that seemed out of place with the simple act of parking. He was trying hard to be inconspicuous, which, ironically, made him stand out more. The man was dressed in the LA uniform of anonymity, dark, loose-fitting jeans, a nondescript light jacket despite the warmth of the evening, and the ubiquitous baseball cap pulled low, casting his face into shadow. Even from across the street, Ryan could sense a tightly coiled tension in his posture. He moved swiftly to the rear passenger door, pulled it open, and leaned inside for just a beat. It wasn't long enough to be retrieving something substantial. It felt different. Then the man straightened up, empty-handed, and slammed the car door shut. The sound cracked through the relative quiet of the intersection like a gunshot. Without a backward glance, without even a pause, he slid back into the driver's seat. The sedan's tires emitted a short, sharp squeal as it accelerated aggressively, cutting back into traffic and disappearing down a side street. Ryan stared at the spot where the car had been, a frown creasing his brow. What was that about? A drug deal? A quick drop-off? Then his eyes focused on the curb. Something small, Something dark, something utterly still, remained where the rear door had opened. His breath hitched. At first, it was just a confusing shape in the gloom, but his headlights sliced through the dusk, painting the scene in stark relief. It was a dog, a small dog, left behind like discarded refuse. It wasn't moving, not running after the car, not barking, not even looking around in confusion, just standing there, a statue carved from neglect. A cold wave washed over Ryan. He felt his knuckles whiten as his grip unconsciously tightened on the steering wheel. This wasn't just littering. This was cruelty distilled to its purest, most cowardly form. The traffic lights switched to green. Immediately, a horn blared from the car behind him, a long, impatient blast. The sound jolted him. Go, move, not your problem. The cynical voice of self-preservation whispered in his ear. He had places to be, a life insulated from this kind of casual ugliness. He glanced in the rearview mirror, half hoping the dog had run off, vanished. But it was still there, a small dark punctuation mark of misery on the sidewalk. Another honk, sharper this time. With a gut-wrenching mix of frustration and reluctance, Ryan touched the accelerator. The Mercedes glided forward. Just drive away, Reynolds. Someone else will handle it. A shelter, animal control, someone. He kept his eyes fixed ahead, forcing himself not to look back. But the image of the motionless dog was seared onto his retinas. He risked another glance in the rearview mirror. The dog hadn't moved an inch, but its head was slightly turned now, its silhouette framed against the distant city lights. Was it looking at his retreating car? He couldn't be sure, but the profound stillness, the sheer absence of hope in its posture, struck him like a physical blow. It wasn't just abandoned. It looked resigned, utterly, terrifyingly resigned to its fate. "Ah, damn it," Ryan muttered, the curse a low growl in the quiet car. He couldn't shake the feeling, the sheer wrongness of it. In one decisive movement, adrenaline overriding hesitation, he flicked his indicator on and expertly maneuvered the large sedan to the side of the road, bringing it to a smooth, decisive stop a little way past the intersection. He killed the engine, plunging the car into silence, save for the distant hum of the city. He sat for a long moment, the rhythmic thud of his own heart loud in his ears. His breath came a little faster now. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit. "Okay, Reynolds, what now?" He looked back towards the intersection. The dog was still there, a small island of stillness in the urban current. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Ryan pushed open the heavy car door. The evening air felt thick, carrying the ubiquitous LA perfume of exhaust fumes, blooming jasmine from a nearby garden, and the faint, underlying smell of sun-baked asphalt. He stepped out, the expensive leather of his shoes quiet on the pavement. Ignoring the curious glance of a passerby, he began walking back towards the dog, crossing the street during a lull in traffic. Each step felt weighted. As he got closer, the details sharpened, painting a grim picture. The dog was small, possibly a terrier mix of some kind, its dark fur incredibly matted and filthy, clinging to a frame that was painfully thin. He could clearly count its ribs. There were patches where the fur was missing, revealing raw, irritated skin underneath. A faint, sour odor reached him even from a few feet away. But it was the dog's demeanor that truly disturbed him. It stood frozen, head slightly lowered, eyes open but seemingly unfocused, staring blankly at the pavement ahead. It didn't acknowledge his approach. No tail wag, no defensive growl, no fearful shrinking away. Just nothing. Complete, unnerving apathy. "Hey," Ryan said softly, stopping about 6 feet away. careful not to make any sudden movements. "Hey there, little guy. You okay?" The dog blinked, a slow, languid movement, as if the effort was immense. Its gaze didn't lift. It didn't react to his voice at all. Ryan crouched down slowly, trying to make himself smaller, less threatening. "It's all right," he murmured, his voice gentle. "Nobody's gonna hurt you now." He scanned the surroundings again. Cars whizzed past. Life went on, oblivious. How long had this dog been standing here? How many people had driven or walked past, ignoring this small tragedy? A knot of anger and sorrow tightened in his chest. He risked moving a little closer. Now he could see the cloudiness in the dog's eyes. The way its breathing was shallow, almost imperceptible. He noticed a worn, cracked leather collar hanging loosely around its thin neck. Attached to it was a small, tarnished metal disc, a tag. Hope flickered briefly. An owner's name? A phone number? He leaned in slightly, squinting in the poor light. The surface of the tag was brutally scored and scratched, deep gouges obliterating whatever information had once been there. It wasn't worn down by time or friction. This was deliberate damage, inflicted with force and intent. Someone had actively tried to erase this dog's identity. The realization hit Ryan with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't just callous abandonment. It was something colder, more sinister. An erasure. An attempt to make this life disappear without a trace. The implications chilled him. Why go to the trouble of scratching off a tag? Was the dog stolen? Involved in something illegal? Or was it just a final act of cruelty from someone discarding a life they no longer valued? Ryan felt a surge of protective anger. He gently extended his hand, palm up, keeping it low to the ground. "Come on," he whispered. "Let's get you out of here." The dog remained statuesque, unresponsive. It didn't even sniff his offered hand. It was worse than fear. It was a complete shutdown, a retreat so deep that the outside world barely seemed to register. Ryan stayed motionless, letting the dog dictate the pace, trying to project calmness he didn't entirely feel. He thought about his own dogs, their boundless enthusiasm, their unquestioning trust. The contrast with this broken creature was devastating. "Okay, plan B," he muttered to himself. He slowly stood up and took a few steps back towards his car, keeping the dog in his peripheral vision. He opened the rear passenger door wider, making it an invitation. He leaned against the car, projecting nonchalance, waiting. Seconds stretched into a minute. The city's sounds pressed in, the distant traffic, music spilling from a passing car, the chatter of people further down the block. He was about to give up, wondering if he'd have to try and physically pick the dog up, when he saw it. A slight shift. The dog lifted its head, just a fraction, and looked towards him, then towards the open car door. Its gaze was still dull, but there was a flicker of something. Consideration, curiosity. Then, hesitantly, putting one paw slowly in front of the other, it began to walk towards the car. Its movements were stiff, cautious, as if expecting a blow at any moment. It stopped a few feet away from the door, watching him intently. Ryan held his breath, not moving a muscle. He gave a slight, encouraging nod. The dog hesitated for another long moment. Then, with a visible effort, it awkwardly climbed into the back of the Mercedes, onto the luxurious carpeted floor. It didn't explore, didn't sniff. It simply lay down, curling into a tight ball, making itself as small as possible, tense and vigilant. Ryan let out a slow, quiet sigh of relief. He gently closed the door, the soft click sounding unnaturally loud. He walked around to the driver's side, slid behind the wheel, and started the engine. The quiet thrum filled the car again. He glanced in the rearview mirror. The dog hadn't moved, just a dark, huddled shape against the expensive upholstery. He pulled away from the curb, merging smoothly back into the LA traffic. The drive home was silent, punctuated only by the sound of the engine and the city outside. Ryan kept glancing in the mirror. The dog remained watchful, its eyes occasionally scanning the interior of the car before returning to an inward gaze. He wondered again about the scratch tag, the deliberate erasure. What secrets did this small broken animal hold? Arriving at his house, he parked in the driveway. The contrast between the sleek, modern lines of his home and the small, dirty creature he'd brought into it felt stark, almost absurd. He opened the back door. "Okay," he said softly. "We're here." The dog didn't immediately move. Ryan waited patiently. Finally, it slowly uncurled and hopped out onto the driveway, looking around with the same guarded caution. Inside the house, the cool air and quiet felt cavernous after the city streets. The dog stayed near the entrance, sniffing the air tentatively, but making no move to explore further. It seemed overwhelmed, uncertain. Ryan left it there, fetching bowls, filling one with fresh water and the other with some high-quality dog food he thankfully had on hand. He placed them quietly near the dog, then retreated to give it space. Minutes passed. He busied himself, trying to feign normalcy, sorting mail, checking messages on his phone. Eventually, he heard the soft lapping of water, then the tentative crunch of kibble. He risked a glance. The dog was eating, slowly but steadily. The small victory. Later, Ryan found himself on the couch, trying to focus on a script, but his attention kept drifting to the dog. It had finished eating and was now lying down again near the doorway, watchful, ears occasionally twitching at the unfamiliar sounds of the house, but still radiating that profound weariness. The silence stretched, filled only by the ticking of a clock and the dog's quiet breathing. Just as a semblance of calm began to settle, his phone vibrated sharply on the coffee table. Caller ID unknown. A prickle of unease ran down his spine. He rarely answered unknown numbers, but something made him pick it up. "Yeah? You were seen," a voice said. It was low, electronically distorted, stripped of all inflection. Cold. Picking up property that doesn't belong to you. Ryan sat bolt upright, his heart suddenly hammering against his ribs. "Who is this? What are you talking about?" The voice was flat, remorseless. "The asset you acquired. It's a loose end from a sensitive operation. We need it back, quietly." Asset? Operation? This sounded insane, like dialogue from a bad spy movie. Yet, the menace in the distorted voice was undeniably real. "You mean the dog?" Ryan asked, disbelief warring with a dawning sense of dread. He glanced at the dog, who had lifted its head, seemingly sensing the tension in the room. "It's not just a dog," the voice replied. "It's evidence, and people will go to great lengths to bury their mistakes." "Who are people?" Ryan pushed, trying to keep his voice steady. "What kind of operation?" "Less you know, the better for your health. We know who you are, Mr. Reynolds. We know where you live. Cooperate, and this can be resolved without complications." The threat hung heavy in the air. "Meet me," the voice commanded. 1 hour. An address will be sent to your phone. Come alone. Bring the asset." Ryan's mind raced. This was crazy, dangerous. He should call the police. But what would he tell them? A bizarre story about an abandoned dog and a cryptic phone call? Would they even believe him? "Why the hell should I trust you or meet you anywhere?" he shot back, anger momentarily overriding fear. There was a chilling pause. "Because," the voice said, the distortion somehow making it sound even more menacing. "We are trying to contain this situation. The alternative involves people far less reasonable than us. If you care about that dog's future, or your own, you will be there." The line clicked dead. Ryan stared at his phone, his hand trembling slightly. A second later, a text message pinged, an address in an industrial area downtown. His blood ran cold. He looked over at the dog. It was watching him, its dark eyes holding an unnerving depth, as if it understood more than it let on. This small, broken creature wasn't just a victim of cruelty. It was caught in something much bigger, something dangerous. And now, so was he. He ran a hand through his hair, letting out a long, shaky breath. He looked down at the dog again, meeting its steady gaze. A wry, humorless smile touched his lips. "Well, buddy," he murmured, the attempt at levity falling flat in the suddenly heavy silence of the room. "Looks like we're well and truly in trouble now."